Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your hosts, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. And if you're wondering why I am bending off right about now, we literally went through the entire intro. We started talking and everything, only to find out that we weren't actually live. So, um, but yo, it's sometimes these things happen. So for those of you that are upset that we're 3 minutes late, apologies. We was on time. The stream just didn't start. But Tony, how are you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, I'm good, fella. It's been a quiet weekend. Not a lot of boxing action, but there was a few decent fights to watch, and yeah, overall pretty good.
Okay, first things first, I want to give a big shout out to Jason Anthony, who is a new member to the channel. Thank you very much for rocking with us. I can see that Jay Lanks is in the building as well, Spoker D, and the main man Guy Fawkes. So appreciate all of you. Now listen, we're going to wait just a few moments, and we do actually have our special guest in the background. So we're gonna bring Raven on shortly. As always, guys, rules of engagement. Members, if you are a member, if you ask any questions, we will pose them. Anyone else, please put it in the form of a super chat, just so we actually can tell that something has come on the screen. Our attention will be directed towards our guest. And please, as always, keep everything, above board and respectful. Everyone, we appreciate when people give their time to the show, and we want that to continue moving forward. We don't shy away from the hard questions, but just be respectful in anything you want to ask. Tony, you got anything you want to say just about the about your fights over the weekend? What you're really interested in breaking down later on?
As it was kind of quiet, much like yourself, a lot of my interest was actually piqued by the UFC fight between Leon Edmonds and Kamaru Usman. But yeah, the Gesta versus Jojo Diaz fight was definitely for me the highlight of the weekend.
Okay, fair enough. Just gonna make sure there's no one else that we are missing. Guy Fawkes is here. Got several people watching. Okay, give it a moment. I'm just checking something very quickly. Yeah, Tony, talk to the people real quick.
So, guys, today we have a special guest, as you've already seen in the chat, in the title. We're joined today by the Raven Chapman, the Omen. She is sitting in the back, looking beautiful and resplendent. Thank you very much for joining us, Raven. We will be bringing her on very shortly. Of course, Raven is 5-0, 2 KOs. She hails from, originally she was born in Norwich, but now she hails out on High Wycombe. She stands 5'7" and weighs in the featherweight division.
So 126.
126 indeed. What else can I say about Raven? I guess you're going to break it all down, but hopefully that's giving the guys who aren't familiar with Raven some of the sort of minutiae of the detail. So
I'm not going to break anything down. I'm going to allow Raven to speak her own tell. I'm just going to ask the questions that need to be asked.
Excellent. So shall we?
Yes, please. Let's bring her in.
Let's do that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Omen, Raven Chapman. Raven, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. How are you guys?
Can't complain. It's been pretty good overall.
Good. I'm excited to be on this one with you lot.
Thank you.
My dad talks a lot about your podcast. He really enjoys it, so I'm sure he'll be listening in.
Appreciate that. So first thing first, I just want to go right. So you are fighting this weekend, right?
Yeah,
now,
Saturday night.
And initially, what you were supposed to be fighting, is her name Lucy Sedlakova?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
from Czech Republic.
From Czech Republic. Now, unfortunately, it looks like that fight fell through. So can you just tell us basically what happened with that?
So it was a couple of weeks ago. Got a message from my manager, just saying that Lucy's pulled out. that she's not been well. She's had a doctor's note. Apparently she's got tonsillitis, and can't do the fight. So they didn't want to postpone my fight. They still wanted me to fight on the show. BT wanted me on the card, so they got me in a replacement, which
Fair
I'm glad
enough.
they managed to do, especially since there's only like 2-3 weeks notice. So
No, I can imagine. Okay, so with regards to your opponent, I've seen that she was a former champ. Was that at 122?
yeah, so it was a couple divisions lighter than me, where she was a former world champion. I think she now campaigning around sort of super bantamweight. So obviously, I guess with the last minute, she'll still be all right making the featherweight boundary. So yeah, she was available. She's still like a formidable opponent. I think that was the main worry when I found out the opponent wasn't going to be Lucy, and they still wanted me on and wanted me to fight someone new, was just, would they find me someone that was sort of decent, that had been in training, that, you know, wasn't like a journeywoman, and it was still going to be a defense of my belt and everything. But, you know, everyone worked really hard and managed to pull it out the bag and get me a good, credible opponent where I can still defend my title.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. Tony, you got anything you want to ask before I carry on?
So yeah, I'm just wanting to paint the picture for, again, people who don't know you so well, Raven. Obviously, you're now 5-0, but you've had quite a traveled amateur career. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because in your resume of fights, you've been all over the place, and you fought girls from literally all parts of the globe,
everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I mean, I noticed Nina Hughes is on your amateur career. Katie Artinstall. You know, tell us about your pedigree, and, you know, what got you into boxing, your amateur background, and, you know, your decision to turn pro.
Yeah, so obviously I mentioned my dad earlier. My dad's a big reason of why I'm into boxing. I guess growing up around it, he never pushed me into it, but it was definitely something I always sort of said I wanted to do, and eventually did it into like my late teens and early 20s. I'm just really glad I did. And getting trained by my dad as well. So as much as I was sort of born in Norwich, I never lived in Norwich. I was kind of just born there. So I kind of grew up mainly in Brighton. That's kind of where I remember most of my childhood. So I kind of say I'm generally from Brighton now. So yeah, lived there, and that's where I first started. And I moved around a bit, moved to Bournemouth. My coach there sort of really brought out what other people saw in me. You know, when you get that coach that can really get inside your head and really bring the best out of their fighter, and that's what I found in my coach Huey down in Bournemouth. So I was, you know, still so grateful for him now, because I'm definitely a better fighter mentally, being able to have that, and just being able to dig in myself now and find that if I need to. But yeah, just a successful career. Like I said, I was part of Team GB, so I boxed loads of girls around the country, around the world, like mainly Eastern European tournaments, going to very interesting places, as you can imagine. But yeah,
Give us one of your. I know, having boxed myself as an amateur quite a lot. You know, you end up in some real dodgy backwaters.
Yeah.
You know, can you give us an example of somewhere that you remember as being, wow, I don't believe I ended up in this place?
Well, definitely, I'd say the last trip I actually went on with GB, I ended up getting food poisoning from from the restaurant. I was the first one to go down with it, and then like everyone just sort of started dropping like flies after me.
Oh, wow.
So that was an interesting one. But then I've been into some like really amazing places, like Italy, their Olympic training grounds, Germany, their Olympic training grounds, really amazing and great places to be. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag, but generally you end up in places like Bulgaria and Poland. So yeah, definitely. I wasn't a big fan of Bulgaria after that last trip.
Right. Okay. So with regards to, I guess, that, and then the transition to the pros,
Yeah.
what was it that kind of made you say, all right, yep, yeah, I've had enough of that amateur circuit on being on the GB squad. I want to turn professional, and I want to make this my living. What was sort of the catalyst for that?
I think it was kind of brewing for a couple of years. Like before I got onto GB, I was flying, I was doing really well, and my first kind of real sort of losses came from when I was actually on GB, and I didn't quite understand why, and just think I just wasn't suited to their program and how they want you to fight, and that was just never how I did it. And I think it shows in before I was there I wasn't losing, and then when I was there I was suddenly losing for the first time, and
Right.
you think you're not good enough when that happens, and you kind of forget what got you there in the first place sometimes because you're so trying to impress and do what they ask you to do, that you kind of lose yourself. And I think that's what happened to me. I lost myself and my style and how I like to box, that
Okay.
I then didn't have that passion when I then did box because I was fighting my natural instinct the whole time.
Yeah.
So when I did eventually decide to leave, it was like instantly that freedom was there, and I was just being myself, and how I like to move, the head movement, the aggressive style, the just what I do now basically. And then we've just progressed on that since, and I think you can see in my fights that it works for me, and I'm suited to that style of fighting, and I'm suited to being a professional.
Definitely. So, okay, so you talked about your style there. So, for the people who don't know, describe your style or how you would characterize it, and sort of, I guess, what you feel is your signature within it.
Definitely my head movement. I feel like I move my head around shots very well. I don't generally get caught with many clean shots when I'm fighting. And just my sort of controlled aggression. I'm a front foot fighter, but I don't just come marching forward. I use ring IQ and head movement and aggression to sort of break down my opponent.
One of the things I actually really like about your style, because I've watched every one of your pro fights. I didn't watch many of the amateurs, but I've seen all the pro ones, is that outside of that controlled aggression, like you do pick shots, but you will be quick to flurry when you see an opening, and you
Yeah,
go to the body a lot. I like the fact that you don't
yeah,
headhunt. A lot of people try and headhunt to get their opponent out of there, but
yeah,
it's almost, for you, it's the opposite. It's like
yeah.
I want to
That's what
take your
we
body
work.
away.
Yeah, that's exactly what we work. It's kind of, I'm a body puncher for sure. I flow up and down, but I think, people always seem to headhunt and go for the head. You think that's where they're going to get hurt, but it's not. You're going to hurt people in the body, and that breaks people down, especially over 6, 8, 10 rounds. You keep constantly hitting them at the body. No one's going to want to, endure that, and that's what breaks people down, I think.
Yeah. I've got a couple questions, but Tony, have you got anything else? Because I've really got a few things I want to deep dive into.
So, you mentioned we were talking about your boxing style. Who are you sort of? Who do you look up to? Who are your heroes in the game?
So with my style, a lot of people, it's kind of like a mixture of Mike Tyson and like Roberto Duran, I say. So with a bit of a Raven flair to it. I love, like back in my younger days when I was training with my dad, we'd drill a lot of Mike Tyson drills, head movement drills, hook drills, and I think that's why I tend to go from head to body a lot. And my left hook is my favorite shot for sure. It just flows so nice when you've got that head movement going. It's just a really nice flow to it. So yeah, those definitely two fighters I really like to watch, and just break them down and try and see what I can get out of that as well.
I mean, no, that's definitely two top quality fighters to mimic or to add some influences from.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. But Duran, I mean, that's my era. I mean, basically, young kid compared to me, you know, I'm showing my age,
Yeah.
Raven, but Roberto Duran is without a doubt someone that I hugely admire, especially in his lightweight days. And yeah, you know, you talked about your left hook. I mean, that definitely is a picture of a punch. When you throw that, you know, it definitely hums your opponents.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And I think for me as well, one of my strengths is my strength. There's not many girls in my weight, I don't believe, that are as strong or stronger than me.
I'll
Um,
agree with that.
so
I'll agree
yeah,
with
that's
that.
definitely something that we work on. And even this camp now, I'm the fittest and strongest I've been. And I know a lot of fighters say that, but we do my last session of camp's always 1,000 rep challenge that my S&C coach sets, and have an hour to complete this challenge. And some of the exercises are naughty, like they are horrible. So there's 10 exercises, you've got to do 100 reps of them, you've got to do them in this certain order. And up until this camp, I'd not actually completed it in the hour. I'd done it like an hour and 4 minutes, you know, some things like that. Whereas this time I got it within the hour for the first time. So it's like,
Nice.
okay, I know I'm the fittest I've ever been. I know I'm the strongest I've ever been. You know, all that sort of heart rate monitoring and things like that. So I
Mm,
know I've had a good camp, and I know I'm there, and I'm feeling so mentally up for it, which is why I was
mm.
so glad that we did manage to get this replacement opponent. So yeah.
Okay, lovely. All right, so if we talk about obviously your pro career now, so you had your debut, I believe it was on a Steffi Ball card. It was a
Yeah.
local card in Sheffield, right? And
Yeah.
then from there, you ended up having a fight on Matchroom as your second fight.
Yeah.
And then from there, you ended up moving over to Queensbury. So what was the reason behind sort of saying, okay, Matchroom, it was a nice experience, thank you, but this is where I need to be. This is where my heart is at the moment.
I think it's that thing like with Matchroom, it's like, you know, yeah, they'll have you on, but you know, I think it's very much about how many followers you have with Matchroom. I'm not the best on social media, like I try, but and as much as I could have the opportunity to box on the shows, you know, through Steffi Ball, my manager, and obviously Terry being on with Matchroom and things like that. Frank Warren really wanted me, and they hadn't signed another female since Nicola way back when. And you know, with Matchroom, you're kind of one of many. You might not get those opportunities. You know, if I was still trying to box on the Matchroom shows now, would I be WBC international champion? Probably not. Would I have as many fights as I have now? Probably not. And you know, being with Frank Warren was something we'd always spoke about at the beginning as well, because they didn't have any other women on that platform, and so to be the first woman they signed in such a long time would be a real big statement and show, well, there's obviously something about this person if they
Yeah.
want to sign her. So that's kind of the route that we wanted to go down, and I wanted to be looked after, and I wanted to be given opportunities that I know that I can like grab it but with both hands, you know, and like make something of it. And that's exactly what we've done, and that's exactly what I'd been given. So I'm just really happy with my decision.
Okay. No complaints with that. As long as you're happy, that's always the main thing. There is an interesting thing that I'd like to sort of have a look at though. So
Mm,
after the Jorgelina Guanini fight, which I was in attendance for, as you know, I thought that was a
yeah.
great fight. I did think you was going to get the stoppage. I'm very surprised she did survive, but
I
she
know.
is a very good
It's
technician, if I'm
tough.
honest.
Yeah.
She's very tough. But the following fight, you actually fought in Dubai against Fatuma Yediza.
Yeah.
Now that wasn't a part of a Queensbury card, I believe. How was
No.
that? How did that come about, and how was you able to sort of do that within your agreement?
So it was through Queensbury. I think they had sort of a collaboration with the Crypto Fight Night, who put on the show, who had sort of their crypto fighters on, but they also wanted proper professional fighters on as well. So it was myself and a couple others from the Queensbury stable got to go out to Dubai and box for it. I think Henry Turner and Louis Lin were both boxing for like WBC international titles themselves over there. So yeah, it was a good little trip. It was really interesting to be around that kind of crypto life, if you like. Definitely weren't boxing people, there weren't boxing promoters. When you get used to such a finely tuned machine, when you go to fight nights with Queensbury, to then something like that, and everything's kind of like they haven't got a clue what's going on, like what fighters need in fight week, because the crypto fighters are all going out for gala dinners and getting on the piss like on fight week, and it's just like fighters don't do that.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. And the first couple of days was a bit tense. I think jet lag, lack of sleep was getting to a few people, and after that it was pretty smooth sailing. We all had a really good time. Weather was beautiful. Got to have a punch up and get paid for it out there and lay on the beach afterwards. So yeah, you can't really complain.
Sounds like the life.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I never really wanted to go to Dubai. It's never been sort of my cup of tea, really. But I'm glad I got the opportunity to go there, and it kind of gave me a bit more of an understanding why people see it as somewhere nice to go. Because if you just want somewhere who's guaranteed to be hot, where you can just lie on a beach or lie by the pool and do nothing for a week, it's a perfect place to go for that. So I might go back. I'd like to try the like sand dune boarding next time.
Okay.
Yeah. I did that myself in Dubai.
Did
That was
you?
real fun. Yeah,
Was
so I
it?
can highly
Yeah. See.
recommend it.
Oh yeah. See, I was going because obviously I was fighting. I was like, I'm not going to do it before the fight, and didn't really get a chance to do it afterwards. So I'll have to go
Yeah,
back just for that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Sounds good. All right. So what I want to know after this fight, now, bearing in mind, obviously, Leka, last minute replacement. So we've
Yeah.
seen recently there's been several last minute replacements that have upset apple carts. So I'm sure that you are not going to be taking that any more lightly than you would have done Sedlikova.
No, definitely not. Especially since she's got, like I say, she's still a very credible opponent. If you think of like how Guanini had, good credentials, good record. She's very similar to your Guanini. She's been in training. She's been active. She last fought in December, I think. It's not like she hasn't been out of the ring or anything. So yeah, I think she's still going to be a tough. Like she's very cagey, so she's going to be quite hard to break down. She's not going to come and throw with me, which is what I was looking forward to with Lucy Sedlikova, because I knew she'd be coming there and wanted to throw with me, and that works perfectly for me. I know I'd be stronger than her, and I really did feel like I could have got the knockout with that one. So
Okay.
this Linda is going to be a little bit harder to break down, I think, just because of her style of fighting. She's very back foot, very, throws a few shots and moves. So it'll be interesting. But again, I think with that control pressure, I can break them down. But
Slowly but
yeah, I feel
surely.
very confident. Yeah, I feel very confident, and again, just very happy that I still get the opportunity to box this weekend with all the hard work that I've put in. And I love, that's what you do at the end of it, doesn't it? You don't want to have that fight camp or that hard work to then not get to fight at the end of it. So yeah, I'm just really excited for the weekend.
So
But
there,
it is
I'd like to ask. There's two schools of thought with the way things have panned out with this particular fight,
yeah,
which is sometimes when you get the opportunity, you get a chance to see fighters in advance. You can see all their catalogue of fights,
yeah,
and
that's
roughly
it.
what they're gonna do. But then with these types of opponents, it's kind of lastminute.com. Not a great deal of intel,
Yeah, yeah.
and the fact that you're in such a great place with your training camp. Do you feel more comfortable going into this fight, knowing that I don't need to know too much about my opponent because I'm where I need to be now?
Yeah, it's a funny one. So I don't tend to watch a lot of my opponents when I'm going to fight them anyway. I sort of leave that. I might watch a few clips here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and I leave the rest to my coaches, and then they come up with the game plan, and then I'm just focusing on me and what I do well. But doing this will work with this opponent. So obviously we did have a game plan with Lucy, which isn't going to work for this girl because they're completely polar opposite styles of fighters. But certain things we can use, but it doesn't phase me because I know I've got everything in my arsenal to adapt when I need to. And in a way, it is sort of more exciting because it's more unexpected. You don't know what to expect. And the first few rounds, you just kind of getting to understand that opponent now, because I haven't really seen her, what she's like. I've seen maybe a clip or two from the gym from my coaches have said, but not much. And there's not much. I don't think they found that much on her either. Nothing recently anyway. So they, you know, they've got a bit of an idea what to expect, but no one really knows what to expect. So you don't know how well she's been training. You don't know what she's been doing back home. It's one of them. So yeah, I just hope that she comes and brings a good fight.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so when this fight's over, how many fights would you like to have this year? What would say, yep, this was a good year for me. I got exactly the right amount of work I needed.
Well, I definitely want to get a few more fights in the year, at least get 3 or 4 in this year.
Okay.
And I see what that trajectory is for me. You know, if I defend my belt at the weekend, which I know I will, what's then the next step? The thing with fighting Lucy was that she's actually the European mandatory, so beating her meant I would have taken that mandatory spot.
Ah, right.
So I don't get that chance now. So that was another thing about the pullout. Was a little bit like, is that something to do with it as well?
Oh,
so
okay.
Who knows?
So were you hoping to run that one back then after this fight and maybe get her back in the ring afterwards?
Potentially. We'll see what happens. From what sort of I'd seen about what Lucy was saying, it did seem legit. She was ill and she said she'd like to do it in the future. So, you know, maybe that's the next fight. But yeah, I know obviously Sarah Mahfoud's now got the WBC silver. I've got the WBC international, and it's kind of, you know, we're working through that WBC route. So see what happens there. That could be a good one where it could put me in for world contention.
So are you looking to are you saying that by the end of this year you want to be looking at a world title fight, or are you saying by next year you want to be able to say like, okay, I don't need any more building fights, I don't need any more step up fights, like I'm where I need to be, I want the crack at whoever's got that WBC strap?
Yeah, I don't think it will take long, either the end of this year or this time next year. I think we should be around there. I know I'm a manager in Queensbury, say trust the process. There's no rush to it, and obviously with my weight, you've got Amanda Serrano, who's sort of the reigning queen at it. So I want to make sure I've got enough experience. You know, she's got plenty of rounds under her belt. She's experienced, and that's the only thing I'm lacking at the moment is experience. I think I could go in there now and fight her, and it'd be a close fight. You know, so. In a few fights time, I think, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't I be ready?
I hear that. Okay. Well, Tony, unless you've got anything else, Raven is in fight week, so we don't want to keep her from her sleep.
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Ready for bed, me.
Right, so just tell us and tell everyone watching, like, where they can find you, where you'll be fighting, and if there's tickets available, anything, just let everyone know, and then we will plug it straight after.
So fighting 25th March, Telford International Centre, live on BT Sports. There's still a few tickets remaining, so if you do want tickets, try and get in touch ASAP, I guess. But yeah, it'll be exciting. It'll be a cracking fight. Like I say, I'm all action. I get stuck in straight away, so you don't want to miss it.
Guys, I can vouch, Raven is telling nothing but the truth when she says she is all action. I've been to several of her fights, I can confirm that. But listen, Raven, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
And we will definitely be tuning in over the weekend. We will be taking a keen interest, and you are now an honorary member of the Great Defeater family. So thank you.
Love that. Love that. Do you have any merchandise for me?
We'll get you some. But I'm waiting. I'm waiting on mine still. I've been there for over a year. I still ain't got none. But don't worry. When I get some, you'll get
I need
some.
to sort that out, Base.
All right. We'll speak to you soon. Yeah.
Thank you,
Take
guys.
care.
Very
Speak
much,
soon.
Raven.
Thank you.
All the
Bye.
best.
Cheers, honey. Bye. Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Omen, Raven Chapman. So we hope you do it. We hope you guys enjoyed that. We got our background, Tony. What's going on?
Just sorting it now. Sorry.
I'm saying you're moving a bit slow. It's not like you. All right. Okay. So, right. What we want to do, because this week wasn't a huge week in terms of boxing and whatnot, we want to run through a couple of the fights that did take place. First one being Dickinson versus Ridings. Now, Tony, you wanted to put this on the agenda, so I'm going to let you just give what you thought and what you saw from this fight and why you wanted to sort of discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the early fights in the card. The
It was on before the bell.
Yeah,
It's Matchroom.
Sorry, yeah. And yeah, it was just literally I was watching early because it was a quiet Saturday for me, and I got into some of the early bouts. Muhammad Ali, I think, was on there, and a few others. But Dickinson kind of stood out for me. You've kind of thrown me in because I kind of now I'm thinking what happened there. But I just remember him looking extremely comfortable against Riding. Being very aggressive in his technique, using good footwork, being able to manage distance between himself and his opponent in such a way to end up with a very positive result. I just, kind of wanted to bring to light that this is someone who I think that we might need to put on our list of to be seen more of.
Okay. So actually, I took the chance to watch that fight just before we came on. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched like the first half. So in my opinion, so it was Dickinson's it was his debut. I can't remember his first name though. Do you remember his first name?
I'm just trying to dig in and find it out now.
You're trying to find everything out, right? Well, either way, so I was watching the fight, and the first thing that I kind of noticed is I saw his flaws more than I actually saw what he did well, and to me that was a concern. The fact that the first thing I noticed was his flaws, but I feel like, okay, let me give you the flaws first, then I give you the good stuff. So what I noticed, which I didn't particularly like, was first of all, his hands, both hands were always down very low, almost in a zombie type state. He looked like his hands was always down by his waist in front of him, with no real defense, no real way to step inside. And there was times he was taking chances inside the kill zone, like hitting sort of 2 and 3 punch flurries at a time when he wasn't keeping himself defensively responsible. So there was several times when, even though they weren't the hardest of shots, he was getting countered in between his own combinations. And it was all
just before you go on, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
You just threw me a little bit of a wobbly because you said his debut. So I'm thinking, are you talking about Adam Rackard?
No, Dickinson and
Mark
and
Dickinson
Ridings.
is 3-0. Well, he was 3-0. He's now 4-0. Well, it's 4-0 now, 5-0.
The one I saw, it said 0-0, but okay, maybe I looked out.
That was Adam Rackard.
No, it wasn't him. Like, I was looking at something on my thing and it said that it was 0-0. It said it was his debut, but okay, that was incorrect then. Fine, because I missed that part. Okay, so 3-0 now, 4-0. Cool.
4-0 now, 5-0. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, okay, that was his 5th fight.
That's right.
All right, so that was okay. Cool. fact still remains, guys. In terms of the style and the way that I was seeing everything, yeah, it's almost like he was taking chances at points when taking chances wasn't the sensible thing to do. And he was getting caught with stuff inside, sort of like inside the pocket when he was unleashing, which to me, I thought, okay, that could be something that gets you in trouble later on. I believe he used to be with Ben Davison, and then ultimately left him just to say that the styles didn't quite gel for him. So maybe I guess the 4-0 does make sense. I thought maybe it was just training before he started, and then okay, cool. However, what he did do well, his distance, his measurement of distance, and being able to sort of step in and take micro steps out to make his opponent overstretch, I thought was quite accomplished and quite skillful for someone of his I guess his standing in terms of professional fights and professional rounds. I didn't see the end of the fight to know. Obviously, I know that he won, but I don't know how he won per se. But again, just from what I basically saw, it was one of those things where I saw what he does well, but I saw a lot of what he doesn't do well. And one of the worst things which I noticed in that particular fight was his chin was very high up in the air at all times. And yeah, okay, you might have the agility and everything to sort of maybe get out of the way of the worst shots now, but in terms of, it's like I'd say maybe that's not quite how you need to be kind of moving forward. Tony, they're saying in the chat, can we get Tony in full screen? Oh, when he makes good points. Okay, I thought they meant that you was like in the corner or something.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, yeah, that's we can move on from that one.
Yeah. So just so you complete what you didn't see, he won it on points, 8 rounds, unanimously. Yeah. So let's move on.
Okay. Which fight do you want to go with next?
I'm just thinking, what did we do? Dakers Ismay.
Okay. Now, was this 2 rounds or 1?
2.
It was 2. Okay, yeah. So I felt like Solomon Dakers, I don't know. It's weird. Like, I don't know what level he's gonna get to, and this fight with Ismay, who, for all intents and purposes, was he's an overweight light heavyweight realistically, because he used to campaign at light heavyweight. At heavyweight now, you can see, the rubber tire around the belly. If he shed that, he'd probably go back to light heavyweight. He didn't particularly have any speed to trouble Dakers, but yet Dakers still managed to get caught with, to me, shots that someone of his advanced height and reach on this guy that's slower shouldn't really be getting caught with. That being said, I think he sat down on his shots a lot more than he usually does, whereas before he was very much he would sort of a pure boxer, stick and move, try and find that angle, hit that jab, angle off to the side, come with the right hand, and then, pivot and make the person have to reset. Whereas he did seem like he just stood in front of his opponent a bit more. And I'm wondering if that's maybe just a case of because he knew that his opponent was overmatched for him, so he's like, okay, I'm going to try different things. I'm going to try and take some more chances because I feel like no matter what, I'll be able to handle whatever comes back my way. Now, I've got to give him his props because his punch selection, when he kept everything long and he kept the punches straight, he was having a lot of success when Ismay was having to fall in, and basically he was trying to catch him on the, sort of on that while he is actually falling in. That being said, though, you go to sort of towards the second round and Ismay is kind of wobbling about. He got caught with a 1-2, which basically made his legs stiffen up a little bit, but he's still kind of there. He's still trying. He's managed to take it. He's taken a bit of a salvo, but he's held on and he's just managed to get his composure back. turn it round to the other side of the ring. He's backed up a little bit. Next thing you know, he gets hit with, I think it was a right, but it wasn't a hard right. It was just sort of like it just caught him, and then he's just standing there, like obviously a little bit wobbled, goes in. All of a sudden, he throws a 1-2, and as he's throwing the 1-2, the referee jumps in to call off the fight. Now, I don't want to go into the same rant that I went into on the weekend wrap, but ultimately, I just felt the stoppage itself was terrible. Like, yes, you can say it was only going to go one way, but realistically, that's what they was intending anyway. Like, they wasn't really giving Dakers a 50-50 fight. So let him work, let him get those rounds in. The guy didn't drop. He wasn't glazed. Wasn't glazed eyes. He wasn't like wobbling all over the place. Yeah, he was stunned prior to that, but he was still engaging. And they always say, if the boxer's still engaging, you let them carry on until they can no longer defend themselves or defend themselves like competently. I think that's what the rule is supposed to be. So yeah, it wasn't really a great stoppage in my mind. What did you think of that particular fight and how it ended?
I mean, to be honest, I think what I was looking for was a quick stoppage anyway. I saw the histrionics in the prelim the week running up to the event, and I looked at Dakers standing up against Ismay, and to me, Ismay looked like a pumped up light heavyweight, as you said. The size differentials to me was significant. Coming on the back of the Bragamonte win, this to me was a little bit of a step down, if you ask me. And therefore, I was expecting nothing less than a very impressive short fight for Solomon Dakers. So he continues his record. He, starts making people sit up and wonder, okay, where can this guy go? Because this is where a lot of those guys are at the moment. There are a few of these guys, Leron Richards and what's his name?
From where?
From Boxer. The heavyweight.
What? Oh, Fraser Clark.
Fraser Clark, yeah. A lot of these guys are like bubbling now, and you're like, okay, so you've now got a name on your record, potentially. You've now entered into maybe a top 30, maybe even the high 20s. Where can this now go to? Because are you now willing to take the next step where you can potentially be considered a contender for belts? And this is Solomon Daker. He's that guy who's now like, okay, by the end of this year, I'm pretty much certain that they'll be maneuvering him into significant title opportunities. I don't mean world title. I mean like, Europeans, international belts, etc., where he can be now ranked up amongst, top 15, top 20.
And that's what you got from this fight?
It was a tune-up to me. It was literally like I was expecting a short fight. Nothing surprised me. The opponent didn't do anything to me that made me think this was an early stoppage, because he just literally took punishment for 2 rounds.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we just to address the chat really quick. Hold on, I've seen there's a question for you here, or it's a bit of a speculation.
Cassettes
and floppy disks.
Floppy disks.
Is that true? Any truth in that?
Definitely can't see them on that shelf, my friend. What you can see is CDs. I got bare CDs.
Okay.
In this day and age, that might as well be floppy disks. But I actually do own 3.5-inch floppies. They're in the vaults in the back cave. Look, some of you youngsters probably don't know what this is. This is something called vinyl.
Yeah, vinyls are very expensive. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I
Oh,
own
okay.
lots of that.
To get back to the show real quick, there is an interesting one that's come from Guy Fawkes. He says the current climate of referees, i.e., British, within sport in general is below average. Very frustrating. So even though you don't believe it was an early stoppage, you don't believe that the referee was wrong to stop it when he did.
No, no, because Ismay showed me nothing in the first or the second round to make me think that this was going to be anything more than short light work for Solomon Dakers. I understand where Guy Fawkes is coming from, but you have to then look at what the refereeing standards are elsewhere. This ain't like football where we can see Premier League referees against Champions League referees. Yeah, because then you can actually say Champions League referees are so much better than Premier League referees. The referees in the rest of the world ain't none of them tearing up trees. You know, I see bad stoppages all over the place. And we
Okay.
watch boxing, literally, we watch boxing from all over the world.
Okay. Right. Well, there's a question here from you from one of our members, Maestro. Says, can we get a freestyle from Tony tonight? I mean,
I ain't got the skills of bass. I ain't never gonna have the skills of bass. It's really funny because Maestro's a teacher, I'm a teacher, and rap is something I work a hell of a lot with. It's definitely something I wish I had skills at, but I kowtow to the greatness over there.
yeah. Never know. Might come out of retirement one day. Oh yeah, big up to Fight Fun. He just joined us. Just joined us.
Big up.
Put him in there. Right. Okay. So, okay. I guess we can move on to what else did you have on the docket? Because we had
So,
those two. We had obviously Pattinson
Pattinson
and Jenkins.
Jenkins,
And what was the
yeah,
other one that you put on there?
was
Oh, was it
Gesta
Hester and Diaz?
and Diaz, yeah.
Yeah, Masito
I mean,
Hester. Okay.
that's the big one for me. That was my. I mean, although Pattinson and Jenkins was a decent scrap,
Mhm.
the real quality for me was Gesta and Jojo Diaz.
Okay, I'll tell
So
you what we do then. I'll tell you what we do. So we'll go Pattinson, Jenkins next. Then we'll do a very brief one on Miller and Brown, and then we can go to Diaz versus Hester, because funny enough, there was actually some pretty decent fights on that Dubai card between Jerome Miller and Lucas Brown, but because most people probably didn't see it, we'll just stick to the main event. So yeah, let's go with Pattinson and Jenkins. What was your thoughts? How did you find it?
okay, so this was a kind of an unexpected gift for the weekend because Cyrus Pattinson has a very good record. Jenkins kind of a little bit long in the tooth, has had worked very well at domestic level in the past, but we weren't really sure what he was going to bring to the table in terms of this matchup. Would it be an easy rollover win for Cyrus Pattinson? But as it happened, it turned out to be a very entertaining fight. Pattinson in the early rounds for me was just getting outworked by what's his name? What's Jenkins' first name?
It's Chris.
Chris Jenkins. There we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the early rounds, Pattinson was throwing his big bombs, which he throws very wide hooks. Mixes them really well. But Chris was basically outworking him in the early rounds. He was throwing in between the shots of Pattinson, some really nice shots, and actually, causing Pattinson a lot of difficulty in becoming the dominant fighter in this fight. And it was literally a war of attrition where Pattinson had to dig deep into the late rounds to get the stoppage. And I have a lot of respect for Chris Jenkins to be able to come in. He did what he had to do in the gym to get himself in what was, to me, he was in fantastic shape. You know, Cyrus Pattinson is a machine. You know, in a way, he kind of reminds me a bit of you know, all the fighters that call themselves machine, like Mean Machine and so on. But you know, he's a unit, very, very strong physically. You can see that. You know, he literally, you know, sinewing muscles all over him from top to bottom. He throws very hard punches. He doesn't seem to know that, you know, sometimes I can go a little bit soft and long and, you know, make my work easier by preparing it with jabs and long hooks, etc. He's one that wants to move his head, march his feet in, and then just get to work with the hooks and the uppercuts. And he does throw good combination punches, but they're not fast. And therefore, Chris was able to use speed and fast combinations to put Pattinson off balance in the early rounds. And some of those early rounds, to me, were won by Chris on the basis of, I'm just going to outwork you. But you kind of thought, going into middle rounds, can he continue this? And as I think it was probably around round 6 where you kind of go, Jenkins's levels of output suddenly drops. And that's where Pattinson, he doesn't increase his levels, but he just maintains his levels of punching through and just continue to march through. And it was that point where we started to see the wilt in Chris Jenkins, and then Pattinson be able to tee off on Jenkins. And there's a couple of rounds there where it's like, oh, this looks like it's now, you know, no longer, you know, a fight where Jenkins could maneuver himself to win it. But then he kind of gets the rollicking from his corner to say, you're losing this. You need to get back in this fight. And he summons the will to kind of go, all right, I'm gritting through my teeth, through my gum shield, and getting back at Pattinson. And again, he kind of, you know, gets back into a round, but then that round wasn't enough to put Pattinson off his game. And it's like Pattinson's like, okay, now I've got you. And so he then turns up the gas.
Okay. So, I mean, I agree with most of what you said, actually, to be fair. The one thing that I have the biggest issue with this fight. Now, bearing in mind, I think that was Cyrus Pattinson, that was his 6th fight. So I think he's now 6-0 after that. So he hasn't obviously had a huge amount. And I guess you could say going up the levels, maybe he's jumped a couple of levels a bit too quick, and now he's going to learn a lot from that in particular. But I had an issue with the amount he was getting caught, bearing in mind, obviously, this is supposed to be a bit of a, not an easy fight, but it's supposed to be a bit of a showcase. It's supposed to be able to show, you know, that you are on this mad trajectory. Jenkins is on his way down. You're on this meteoric rise. You should be way too much for him too early. And what I saw, especially in the fact that Cyrus Pattinson employed a standardized pressure fighter style. It was literally come forward, crowd his opponent, doesn't allow him to sort of set, doesn't hardly work off of the jab, purely stays on his chest, just works him into corners, works him into the sides of the ring, and basically throws punches in bunches in the hopes that one will land in the sweet spot and take out his opponent. Whereas Chris Jenkins was being a bit more of a boxer puncher, fighting on the back foot, fighting on the front foot as well. And he, like I said, he was catching Pattinson with some shots that I was like, you're not supposed to be taking these. And the way that some of these shots were hitting, I'm like, you might have a good chin, but you should not be eating these shots, because all it takes now is just one sweet one, maybe an inch lower or an inch higher, or maybe an inch more to the right or the left, and all of a sudden, like, you know, that's a crisis. There was very little defense from him, but it was, as you said, consistent work rate and output. Now, if he's going to be that typical pressure fighter, then he's going to have to learn defense a lot more tighter than what he had there, because again, if you're coming forward with your head on center line, barely moving it, and then not even having your hands tight guard to sort of hold those particular areas and to basically cover the danger points and the danger zones on your face and your chin and everything, that could be a recipe for disaster. So I tweeted after the fight that I thought that it was I said it was a much better fight than I was expecting. It's a fight that kind of saved the card, because I did think the card was trash from the start up until then, and it shouldn't be what you're promoting as your weekend's offering. That should kind of be realistically like a Thursday card or something like that, and then you have something better standing on the weekend, or you mix and match. Don't just have all next gen, have half and half, whatever you want to do it. But yeah, I kind of saw it and thought to myself, okay, this is kind of your level, because you haven't really shown me much separation or that you can get much better than what's just occurred here. So I don't see him doing a huge amount past British, but if you match him correctly and keep him obviously in the northeast of the country where his fan base is, you definitely get some good nights out of him, and you know, both you and him can make some good money together. But in terms of putting him into European and world level, he might be okay at European, but when it starts getting to like those world level competitions, I just can't see it personally. I'm happy to be wrong, because obviously you want to give all the these little prospects and stuff their chance to sort of grow and mature. And sometimes you get one that has like this really hard, dangerous fight early on, and then you know they slowly graft and graft and graft, and then they get there in the end, and they're all the better for it. But I don't know if I saw the remnants of someone that's gonna do that in this fight. I just saw someone that maybe got a bit overconfident, made it harder than probably it needed to be, and just used youth and like superior size as his advantages over his opponent. So when he fights someone who's now of the same size, like physically, or the same strength or whatnot, you know, can he still employ those same tactics? I can't lie, I'm getting Jared Heard vibes, but I hope I'm wrong. See, okay, so real quick before we jump into the next one, I'm trying to see. All right, so Fight Fan has said, and we agree, 30 people watching live. Can we all please hit that thumbs up? We definitely need it for those metrics. Okay, looks like they're starting to talk about Brown and Miller, so I guess that's a good way for us to segue into that one. Now, did you watch this fight? Okay, so you didn't watch this. Okay, cool. So this one's all me. Now, I said on my channel that I could have been wrong, and Danny from Fight Fan has given me a fight to watch to maybe disprove my belief here. But I truly believe that was like the slowest fight I've seen ever, in terms of two people in the ring, like moving towards each other, throwing punches, trying to block punches, trying to like they literally both just look like zombies in there. That's not the Jerome Miller I remember, who was always a big guy, 300 plus pounds, but he always was quicker. He used to just sit on the chest, work rate. Now we can maybe attribute that to other things, and also he is like, you know, a good 4 years older than he was at those times there. But I mean, he was just really slow and cumbersome. You had, I mean, Lucas Brown, who has never been anything but snail. So it was literally just going to be who wouldn't be able to move out of the way quick enough to avoid like, you know, a big right hand or a big left hook. But the fight was very entertaining for as slow and cumbersome as it was. It was literally two balls just basically ramming into each other, and it was about who was going to get backed up first. And obviously Jerome Miller basically had that size and that strength, you know, that former football background of his. He just had that natural inherent size and strength advantage, so would frequently push Lucas Brown back. He's got pretty good head movement, to be fair, for someone of his size. You can tell that he was a former athlete just by some of the things he does. And he's got also good sort of head defense, the way he kind of slips the arm like where that punch is coming. He always manages to kind of get just enough of the shot out of the way, enough of the weight off of the shot to sort of be all right. Because after the fight, you see, it wasn't really that marked up, which obviously you can kind of tell that he was, that he's got tough, but he's also quite well. Obviously, also being a former kickboxer as well, you know how to kind of look after yourself, looking at shots and angles from all different caveats and angles and perspectives, and you're not just thinking about faces, elbows, knees, feet, and everything else. So yeah, but I would say that overall it was it was an enjoyable fight for the 6 rounds it lasted. Every time Jerome Miller basically thought he had Lucas Brown sort of going, Lucas would just come back with a flurry, or he would come back with his own combinations, and you could tell that Jerome Miller was wary that I can't just take this guy's power flush, so I've got to still be comfortable, be sensible. But eventually he managed to wear him down, drain his legs, drain his gas tank, put him down in the 6th. Lucas Brown gets up, referee asks him if he's okay, if he wants to continue. He didn't sound convincing, but he did say yes. He went back into the center of the ring, got pushed back to the ropes, ate a combo, and the referee jumped in and said, "No, it's enough. We'll have we've had enough of that." And yeah, overall, like it was a cool fight. If anyone has seen the fight or seen the card, because there were some good fights on that card overall, I can't lie, it was probably the best card of the weekend. And that's in a way that's a bit of an indictment, but yeah, it was the best card of the weekend, like pound for pound overall.
So let me ask you a question, Base. Yesterday I got muddied by Mr. Maestro A, and he reckons that Jarrell Miller is a better fight than Jermaine Franklin for AJ. Are you in agreement with that?
As an overall package, yes, because Jermaine Franklin doesn't talk. He's like, we're talking about, if you're talking about selling a fight, yes, Jerome Miller is perfect for AJ. Like he'll say enough that makes AJ get out of character, which is what happened in their second press conference that they had in America. He'll be feisty enough. Whether the fight in the ring ends up being what it needs to be, I'm not sure, but I think it could be, because he's going to pressure AJ. And we know that previously AJ's gas tank runs low after 4 rounds, and then he has to recharge, and then he gets his second win sort of rounds 9, 10, 11. Now, if Jerome Miller can weather the first 4 to 5 rounds and then push AJ down the rest of the stretch, that's a very competent fight. But in terms of an overall build-up, yeah, I mean, who wasn't begging to see that fight before the drugs, the failed tests and everything? We was all looking forward to it.
Not me.
So you preferred Andy Ruiz at the time? I'm talking about.
Yeah, I did. I did actually think Andy Ruiz is a way better opponent. I mean, Big Baby Miller was getting a lot of airplay, but to me, he was just like one of these big mouth, cocky fighters who talks his way into a fight situation.
But that's what draws eyes on the sport.
I understand that. But the reason I asked the question is because you just mentioned about how slow and ponderous he was in this fight, and I kind of go, well, does that mean that he really is someone that we should be lauding as a potential opponent for AJ? Because for me, there's way better fish out there that AJ could be looking at than Big Baby Miller.
Yeah, there's tons of them, but we're not talking about who's better at the moment as just the opponent in the ring. We're talking about someone that's going to help you sell the fight, or is going to at least keep your market rate high. And at this point, someone like Jerome Miller is actually probably good from the perspective of he's going to be big, he's going to be durable, you're going to have to work, and it will give you all the rounds you need, because you're not just going to one punch KO him in the first round. It's not happening. So in that sense, there's a lot of things there that I think he could work on. And realistically, he'll probably drop a little more weight, or he'll do things to compensate for the fact that he is heavy and slower, and he'll find other ways to get into the fight. Because remember, when George Foreman came back, he wasn't slow, he wasn't fast to begin with. When he came back, he was ponderous and zombie-like, but he found a way. There's no reason to say that Jarrell Miller couldn't adapt and find that same way with the right time and preparation. But overall, the promo of the fight is a lot better.
Cool. Thank you. Okay.
Now to your main event of choice of the night, which was Jojo Diaz versus Masito Hester. Go for it. Tell us what you thought of this fight.
Well, I should get my notes out and get ready to break down this amazing fight. Okay, this was actually, like, on paper, this was a great matchup. Great matchup. Gesta, 35 years old, Jojo Diaz, 30 years old, similar fight records. They literally have had a plethora of fights before meeting. 33-3 for Gesta, 32-3. So you can see their records were very similar. Both southpaws. This was just a really good matchup. So going into the fight, it was literally a case of, well, let's see how these two styles match up. Masito Gesta fights in a very on his toes style. And this is because his background is Muay Thai. He had no amateur background, but his style on his toes looks very much like your type of Filipino type of fighter. And his hands are blistering. So he comes out in round one, and I'm like, okay, let's see who's gonna be doing what here. And my first thing was, wow, I've seen Gesta before, but look, this guy is literally blitzkrieg with his hands. Is literally throwing like speed of hands is phenomenal. And he's all over Jojo Diaz in round one. Jojo's literally, he's coming out looking the ponderous type of pressure fighter, but he can't get his punches off. Because
Tony, sorry, before you fully get into your bag, let me just say something really quick, and then you can go carry on. Mr. A, Miller versus Joyce, I put it on Twitter yesterday, so hope you ain't trying to steal my ideas. Carry on.
Okay, so Gesta, is very much the technical fighter. As I said, he's very much on his toes. A little bit different to classic type boxing technique. Because of that, you're kind of looking at the way he swings his hips, and it very much looks like somebody who's about to throw a roundhouse kick or something, but it's effective. And his speed of hands is definitely a problem for Jojo Diaz. Jojo is looking early rounds to try and get his hooks in. Jojo's a very powerful puncher. He's a pressure fighter, so he's looking to get close into Gesta and unleash his body shots, his hooks. But in the early rounds, I've got this all for Gesta. He's basically just dominating Jojo with his attacks. He's moving in and out. A lot of I'll go in, counter punching where necessary. Just is everything to me is very attractive. From the way Gesta is dominating his technique against Jojo Diaz. Jojo is more of a stalker at this stage. He's trying to find the distance between himself and Gesta, but Gesta is just not allowing Jojo to get into this fight. And so, the early rounds is definitely all about Gesta. Round 5, Gesta is building up his points. At that point in round 5, mid-round, Jojo unleashes a flurry of punches, and it's like, ooh, hang on a second, this isn't gonna be one-way traffic. And it's at this point that I kind of think like, okay, this is going to be different. And this kind of sets the tone, because at round 5, Jojo throws a combination that makes you think this fight isn't going to just be one-way traffic. But Gesta still wins the round because he's working. However, round 6 is a turning point for me, because Gesta appears like he's spent. It's not spent completely, but it's like the previous fight with Pattinson. The level drops, and all of a sudden you kind of think, oh, Gesta's not quite as effective as he was, and his punching isn't affecting Jojo in the same way. So instead of being crisp with a lot of his punches, what we see with Gesta now is we see he start to pour with his jab. Whereas before it was very fast, a southpaw jab, very fast jabs, and then the combinations. In round 6 now, the output drops, and what he's doing is he's pouring. But because he's pouring onto Jojo, he's now literally standing in the kill zone. And so that gives Jojo his opportunity to start getting in, just ducking underneath. And literally, Gesta's jab is on the top of Jojo's head. And Jojo's like, okay, you put your hand there, pop, pop. You know, I'm going to bury my body shots into you. And he's literally able to start throwing very fast combos into the body of Jojo Diaz. So round 6 is where it starts. Round 7, it ramps up. You know, round 7, Jojo comes out and he's fast off from the stool, gets his combinations in. He starts to become the dominator of this fight, and he's becoming the initiator of the action. Whereas before, you know, he was trying to initiate action, but Gesta was beating him to it. Round 8, Gesta gets, you know, his corner gives him a barracking and tells him, you know, look, you need to get back into this. And he comes out round 8, stick and move, just as his corner tells him, and he actually wins that round for me. And then in round 9, this is where Jojo starts to really take over. You know, he starts to sit down on his punches and he starts to hurt Gesta. And it's like, okay, you know, Gesta tries to punch in between, but he's got nothing left. His popper's gone now, you know. And now we're kind of like, okay, this is, can I get through to the end of the 10th round? Because this is now a 10-round fight. Gesta looks tired physically. He's missing a lot of shots, but now Jojo is on. He's like, okay, if I'm down, this is where I'm going to take over. And he's looking to finish Gesta. And Gesta just manages to see his way through to the end of the 10th round. You know, after what was for me a very entertaining fight, the judges' scorecards are all over the shop. So we had one judge judged it for Jojo Diaz 97-93, which is just like, what the hell have I just listened to? But the other 2 judges, I've got it 99-91 to Gesta, which is a huge differential. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. There's clearly a lot more rounds that you know, Jojo Diaz needs to be given credit for. And the third card was 98-92. So a very controversial, unanimous split decision win for Masito Gesta. He to me won the fight.
So was it a unanimous or was it a split? Because it can't be both.
Split decision.
So what was the first card?
97-93
to Jojo Diaz.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on,
then,
sir.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of one of them that had a bit of controversy at the end because of the way the judges saw it. As I said, I saw it as a Gesta win. A very entertaining fight. That's my take.
Okay. Well, on this occasion, you've outbased Base because you've pretty much summarized everything lovely. And if I'm being totally honest, while I did watch the fight, I never managed to get through all the fight in one sitting at one time. I kept falling asleep. Not because the fight was, I'm not saying the fight was boring, but I was tired. That being said, from what I did see, I saw like Masito Hester, because you was very British in your pronunciation of his name.
Sorry.
I was letting you rock. I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
with regards to like I saw that he was getting a lot of the quick flurries and sort of the quick work in, but I felt that Jojo Diaz was landing the heavier shots when he was able to get in range. And so sometimes it was more a case of, do you value maybe the 3 or 4 heavy punches that Diaz has landed that's rocked Hester, or do you go for maybe the 9 to 12 punches that Hester's landed that, while haven't done the same level of damage, they're consistent and they are scoring and telling, and they're, you can see they're visibly catching the opponent. I know exactly why you're laughing, by the way. It's fine. I've seen it as well. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a fight whereby, while I don't think there was enough to say that you could see the swings, between like a 98, 92 to Hester and then a 97, 93 to Diaz. If it was like a 96, 94, either way, then you could say, all right, do you know what? I can maybe see how you give 1 or 2 swing rounds here or there, or a draw. As a, you could say, okay, there's a couple where I can see it. I would still personally think, from what I saw, Hester won, but it wasn't a convincing win because he made it hard for himself towards the back end. And I definitely think Diaz took, from what I saw, at least 2 of the first 5 rounds. So if he took 2 of those and then maybe took like 2 clean at the end, and then you maybe argue about 1 or 2, you can kind of see where maybe it goes. But overall, to me, the right person won. No idea what Jojo Diaz does next, because he did say after the fight that was his last fight with Golden Boy Promotions. So yeah, see where he goes next. I guess they wouldn't have really wanted Masito Hester to win as such, because 35, how much more life is left in him, or how much more can they market and promote him? But this also wasn't supposed to be the main event. So maybe it's just one of those fights where let's just throw 2 people together and see what happens, and then we'll take it from there. And if we need them on another undercard, maybe we'll do that moving forward. That's maybe how I see it. But yeah, no, from what I saw, it was a good fight, and I will go back and finish watching it like properly. But yeah, in terms of me assessing it, you done the job fine. So thank you very much for taking the load on that one.
Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, with the final 10 minutes or so of the show, we are gonna go to what you guys want the most. It was must-see TV. It was a pay-per-view event. It was something that has been building up for the last 6 months. Everyone had their favorite. You never knew which way it was going to go. It was a true 50-50 scrap, which is not something we get very much nowadays. And if you paid your subscription, if you checked in, you would have seen I guess it was a catchweight bout between cruiserweight and heavy and bridgerweight. I think we're going to say. So we had earlier on today Eddie Matchroom Hearn versus Simon Talksport Jordan from 11 till 12:30, and it was a slugfest, if ever I say so. Now, how would you like to sort of go with this one particularly? Should we play basically? I'll play one side and you play the other, or should we just go in the way that we saw it and how we kind of broke down each part?
So it looks like you really got into the minutiae of each element of what everybody was talking about. For me, this was a great deal of waffle. There's so much waffle in this conversation. Look, I've seen that the guys in the chat have got so much to say. I'm almost half thinking, does anybody even want to come on and have you know what I mean?
All right, well, let's find out. Give them. All right, so you guys have got 35 seconds to put down whether or not you'd like to get a link to come in and give your take on the talks, and then we will, if we don't see anything, I will summarize this. Tony will, I guess, give his little diatribe, and then we will call it a night. So let All right, so far it doesn't like anyone said they want to jump in, but Tony, put the link in the chat for them,
Okay.
and then whoever jumps on, they've got 2 minutes to get on, and otherwise we'll just spend 5 minutes on it ourselves. Oh, Maestro said he's here for you, but he disappeared. I don't know if he's looking more smoke today. Maestro, if you do hit that link, you will remain on topic or we will kick you out. We're not doing any other stories other than Hearn v. Jordan. I'm giving you fair warning. So you will not be dictating the pace of the latest episode of The Breakdown today, sir. Let me click this guest button, see if anyone jumps in.
You'll hear me, Maestro. Don't worry. You'll hear me. So let me carry on while we wait to see if anybody does jump on. So essentially, I don't feel like I have like a huge amount to say in relation to the battle, because there was a lot of waffle, as I said. I mean, look, but the contract is this, and but why don't you have a contract? And what was his Simon Jordan kept saying about a cease and desist, and I'm like, okay, but you don't know what is in Eddie's contracts, but you're making out like his contracts inside out.
And to me, that's go on. Sorry, carry on.
And I'm just like, I'm listening to Simon, and I'm keen for Simon to really, hone in on all the aspects in this tirade he's giving. But ultimately, he's letting himself down for me because he's talking stuff that he doesn't know. So Eddie is just slippery as a flicking eel. And for that reason, this conversation, I'm not going to go too far into it, because ultimately, I don't think there's a winner. Let's hear what Josh has got to say. Shall we let Josh in?
Go for it. I'll give my takes afterwards.
Yo, what are you guys saying?
What is going on with Josh? Every time Josh
let Josh be in the dark. Put him in the main screen. Give him what he wants.
Yeah, back in the dark. But what I was gonna say? Yeah, I want to speak about Simon Jordan was making a comment about AJ's resume being really shit. He had to pick out two gimmies, I guess you could call it. I mean, Dominic Brazil wasn't a gimme, I guess, but I don't know. He was just saying he's got a weak resume. He was saying Eric Molina, Dominic Brazil, but what do you guys think? Would you say he's got a weak CV?
Tony, go ahead.
I don't think so at all.
No. Klitschko, people try and say, he beat a 40-year-old Klitschko, but Fury fought him a year and a half prior, and I'm not sure if Klitschko can get that poor in that amount of time. Do you guys agree? Yeah.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Let's talk about what the heavyweight division has been in the last 10 years. It has not been as dominant and as interesting as decades gone past. You know, when we had, you know, some real great champions fighting each other regularly. You know, we've had some really great trilogies. Obviously, Evander Holyfield against Riddick Bowe, Ali Fraser. You know, there's literally been decades of really great action in the heavyweight division. Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, it was 3 great fights, but let's not pretend like they were 3 great fights. They were 2 great fighters fighting each other. One is potentially a great, but the other one is to me still not talkable as a great, even though he has a 97% knockout ratio as a heavyweight and has a huge amount of defenses of a heavyweight title. But, you know, his record to me doesn't make him great, you know.
Yeah. The people he's fought, are Artur Spilker, Bemainster Vern. Yeah. He really did get really shit opponents, but yeah. I don't know what else. But yeah, Base, have you got anything to say?
No, I'm letting you have your time because obviously we're gonna wrap up in a moment. So, have you got anything else you want to add just to with regards to the battle between those two, or was that the only point you wanted to make?
Nothing much else to say really. But yeah,
All right.
good talking to you guys again.
Thank you, Josh. We will see you on
Thanks,
Monday.
Josh.
Yes, we'll see you on
care.
Monday. See you.
All right, so we got a big up. Our brand new member, Mr. A, has just become a member of the channel. He's been an avid supporter of the Great Defeaters and the Undefeated podcast for several years, but now he's just set up the official. So now you get access to the good stuff. You get the squared circle, and you get the pod in its full format. So you're gonna have some good laughs in there. The squared circle, for those who don't know, is I believe it's going to be a weekly show, but it might end up being monthly. But it stars KG, Travis J, October Red, and Maestro, and they basically debate 2 or 3 subjects within an hour, and they all sort of go around. They all have their say. Sometimes they can have opposing debates. It's a little bit like Monday Night Smoke without the vim. So you actually got to come with decent debate tactics. There's no talking over each other. You just got to kind of get your points off and then defer to the other person. So from what I saw, definitely a great addition to the channel, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy for the new members. And if you're not a member, please think about subscribing so you can get all that good stuff.
Excellent. So Guy Fawkes says Jordan seems to be believing his own opinion. That's where he messed up. So
yes,
as we all know, Simon Jordan is probably, next to Piers Morgan, the most opinionated commentator in the media. You know, he literally blows smoke up his own backside, which is why generally I don't listen to the guy. I know he can be controversial. I know he can also be very much to the point. You know, he makes a lot of salient points. But generally, I don't like the guy. I don't like listening to him. I think he's just too braggadocious of his own self, and his own ego is just too big. In the same way, I think the same thing about Piers Morgan. And this interview showed me exactly that, you know, in this situation where he's coming to the table against a man whose profession is to read contracts day in and day out. He seemed to think that he was the arbiter of law for boxing contracts.
Yeah. Big up to Julius in the chat. Ring IQ Boxing Talk. If anyone has not subscribed to Ring IQ, make sure you go over there. One of my favorite channels and one of the channels that supported me from day dot. So big up to Julius, and I will be on I will be on late night talks later on if there is one. And with regards to your Base, why didn't you tell me? Look, I told you before that Raven was coming on the show. If you didn't join it, that's your own fault. I told you prior. I gave you forewarning. Go on, told me, oh, I forgot. No, that's your own business. You can watch it back. And you know that she loves you anyway. I know that you guys need to do your show and do your chat when you get a chance. But yeah, big up to Ring IQ.
And bless up for the super chat as well. We really appreciate you. And I also am a great fan of your work as well. So yeah, big up to Ring IQ if you're not following.
Defo. So yeah, no, with regards to Simon, real quick, because we're gonna shut off the stream shortly. I feel if we look at in terms of who won, I feel Eddie won it from a perspective of Simon was doing. He was basically trying to sort of just do pressurized tactics. He'll say one thing, then when you go to answer, then he says something else, and then he makes you try and answer something else that wasn't what you was originally trying to say. But Eddie did very well at sticking to task. He kept bringing it back to contractual stuff, and then every time when Simon goes, okay, but what about morally? It's like, well, my morals have nothing to do with this. I can't change a legal standing with morals. It doesn't work that way. And then when you get to sort of some of the things where he's like, oh, but they sent the cease and desist letters. Like, well, actually, no, we didn't. And he's like, oh, are you sure you didn't? It's like, well, yes, I've just told you that. So everything that he basically was saying was literally, it was conjecture, and it was him surmising something based on either hearsay or what he believes to have been the case. So apart from maybe the very first round when he just really sort of stuck it on Eddie, in that first sort of the first round of the 6, there was not really much else he could really do apart from just keep trying to belabor and repeat points and hope that maybe he trips Eddie up. But Eddie was just like, well, you can't trip me up on something I know day in, day out, which you clearly don't have the knowledge of. And then I think the part that also makes it worse in terms of that whole setup is if you're going to ask someone something, you have to let them answer. From you keep jumping in, you already lose because you're not, because at that point, you're not framing a narrative. All you're doing is basically beating, and people can then see that all you're doing is pushing your own agenda and narrative because you're not trying to hear the answers. You're not trying to find out the truth. You're just trying to have your say, and your say is all you're going to, all anyone's going to hear. So in that sense, I feel like Eddie handled it well. And the fact that, you know, no one was just like, oh, the fact he didn't storm out the building like crying meant that he was naturally winning that just from a place of, I know what I was doing. I know what I had to do. You don't understand what I'm talking. And even when he's telling him, like, I'm telling you, you're wrong in what you're saying because, and then from you cut him off at that point, you can't win that argument. So, but with regards to it as a whole, I believe that the same things I knew a month ago, 2 months ago, 4 months, 6 months ago is the same things I know now. There was nothing new that was said in that whole thing, especially with the Conor Ben stuff that made me say, oh, like yeah, oh, okay, Simon got a bit of something, he got a little bit extra out of there. I like that. It wasn't any of that. It was literally like, okay, all right, you said that, now you're gonna say it again. Okay, say it again. Okay, say it again. Yeah. And then even the bits about Bawatsi and, you know, when he was basically, when Eddie was making very veiled references to his commercial power, shall we say, and the fact he was on Sky Sports, and then what he ended up doing on DAZN and all of that. Again, that was stuff where speculation, most people kind of already felt that Bawatsi wasn't the biggest draw as such. So even when he said that, that wasn't like, oh, it's a bombshell. It's just maybe the fact that the way he said it, and he said it so flippantly, like maybe people wouldn't really catch it. But yeah, like several of us caught the shots. It's like, okay, we see what this is now. Fair enough. But overall, it was an entertaining hour and a half. I mean, I can't say any further than that. I didn't learn anything new, but I was entertained at lunchtime, and that's the main thing.
I mean, the thing I would say is, you know, credit to Eddie, because when Simon went low, Eddie stayed high. You know, there was.
Oh, I don't know about that. No, because he talked about man going bankrupt. He talked about it,
yeah, but you know what?
him taking Crystal Palace into admin. No, but the way he did that, the way he dropped that was nasty. I mean, he went for the straight low blow.
You know what? At least he kept it to the business, because what Simon was doing, Simon was going personal. Simon was running off all them, you know, castigate, giving the man, like, saying all them things about him as a person, as opposed to saying, well, actually, from a business perspective, yeah, you've shown yourself to be the apex predator in the game. Yeah, Simon did give him props and say, you know, look, you've achieved, but then he starts slurring him with all kind of, you know, words that basically were just like childish in my opinion. And obviously stuff was saying in between the breaks, because when the breaks came and they came back, it was like the guy in between was kind of going, all right, back off, because you could tell they'd been giving it the verbals.
Yeah, Jim White. No, I mean I agree, but I still thought it's the way that he dropped the bankruptcy line was almost like that Hail Mary shot. It's like, okay, he's kind of getting on top. He's not letting me work. Now I just gotta land something. And yeah, it was dirty because as soon as he said that, I noticed as soon as he said that, like Simon Jordan, it's almost like he recoiled. He got angry, like, oh, you want to be careful what you say before you get yourself in trouble. Then he's like, oh, okay, I apologize. What was it? Into administration? And Simon's like, no, he didn't go into administration. The bank put them in administration. Okay, so you put them in administration and all of that. And Simon couldn't answer the question. And from there, he stopped. He's like, okay, so that's when you knew Eddie had him. I was like, okay, cool. It was but it was entertaining. But yeah, but big up to Guy Fawkes for the $4.99. Thank you very. Let me do this one real quick. Yes, thank you very much for that. Next time, make sure if you want to ask a question or something, just make sure you get your shout out. Ring IQ says keeping calm is a good way to show who's in control. Very true, Base. I appreciate it. Thank you for the cosign. Let's see. Yep, and Maestro agrees 100%. I know that is a tactic that that Julius does when he debates people and makes good money off of it on his platform. He never has to get irate and shout. He tried to keep controlled, unless the person wants to be an idiot. Then he just like cusses them out at the end, and it's very, very highly entertaining. Jonah 31, thank you very much for the super sticker, the $1.99, and again that is a member, so brilliant. And then Maestro says Simon attacked his morals and called him a snake oil salesman. That is very true. He did question his character, obviously called him a coward as well. So they should have kept filming and put it out on YouTube or for the breaks. Yeah, maybe they might do. That might be the next segment, because you think about it, they got a lot of hits off of the videos they put out today. Maybe that's the thing. Oh, behind the scenes or what you didn't see. Like, they'll make money. You man are done for says sports journalism is in the mud if Simon Jordan is at the top. I mean, yeah. And G Chain says it was Mayweather on Ortiz. Ken Griffin says Simon Jordan took an L, and you can kind of tell by that picture they all took. Eddie and Jim White is all smiles and Simon looks vexed. All right. Now, with regards to Hot Pies, I'm going to address this. Plant versus Benavides. That takes place next week, so we will break it down. We don't do predictions. We don't really talk about the fights in the future, just so you're aware. So yeah, come back next week for that. And then James Douglas says Eddie has a mouth. He's a great promoter for a reason. Waved says I never knew a Coley is fighting this week. Where is the Sky Sports machine? I mean, I mean, if we want to talk about ticket sales and stuff, I mean, those tickets were a lot cheaper than the AJ ones, and there's still quite a few around. So, but maybe the machine is machining. He has been out of the ring for a year and a bit, so give him a chance, see what happens moving forward. And Guy Fawkes,
also the sorry to interrupt, that might also be affected by the opponent.
Quite possibly. Guy Fawkes, Fulton cancellation. No, it's not a cancellation, it's a postponement. Stephen Fulton has already said they've got another date in mind. It's already there and confirmed, so it would just be reallocated to that date. So no, the fight's not off, don't worry. All right, can you put up the banners for us, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the show. A bit later than we were planning, but thank you very much for staying and rocking with us for this hour 40. As you can see down below, that's all my socials. BaseDaKID on Instagram. I hardly ever really use that much, but yeah, B_A_S_E on Twitter, or just type in BaseDaKID as you see it written on the screen, and I'll show up on there. And go to my YouTube channel, BaseDaKID, the Hardcore Casual. Almost at 1,000 subs. I just need about another 35 or so. So if you can, please go over there, give it a subscribe, give it a like, watch a couple videos, and let me know what you think. I would greatly appreciate it. Tony, put yours up. And now, as you can see, Tony, go for it. Tell them yours.
Tony the Pugilist Boy on all platforms, with the exception of Instagram, where most of my good work takes place, where it is Pugilistic Boy. But elsewhere, Pugilist Boy will get you all access to all of my content. So thank you, everybody who's joined us this evening. Thank you for staying with us. It's been very much a very entertaining show. Once again, want to give a massive thanks to Raven.
Raven Chapman, don't forget she's fighting this Saturday, March the 25th, in competition with Lawrence Okoli and David Light, but I think she will be on a little earlier on in the card. So if you have BT Sport, or if you can get it on the app, because you know people do watch shows on apps, please make sure that you do tune in, watch her show against Linda Lecker. I'm pretty sure she's going to put on a great performance. I'm looking forward to speaking to her after the show. And yes, I'll be keeping tabs moving forward. And then obviously we've got the boxer stuff. We've got Benavidez versus Plant. So there's going to be a lot to talk about this week. And I've got a very special guest lined up for the 11th of April. While we was on air, I was literally confirming it. I will let you guys know nearer to the time. But yeah, I will tell you guys shortly. We may have one before that, but the next one is a very special, very big guest, which I'm very happy that we do have in the tuck. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. That's me out. And Julius, if you're still watching, I'm coming on Talks as soon as it starts. So catch you lot later on. Have a good one.
Take care, guys.